Hi, friends. It's me, Justine, the host of Essential Ingredients, and I'm so pleased to be back with you this week. Each week, we try to bring you new founders, innovators, and research in the space around building better for you food or businesses that impact our health, our lifestyle, and the planet. So this week, we have Jamiah, and amazing. He is the founder of Crop Swap LA and Crop Swap Your City. You're not going to want to miss this episode. I found it truly inspiring and wanted to innovate immediately and create something on a local level. Crop Swap LA is focused on building community and addressing food insecurity. So if that is something that resonates with you, you're really not going to want to miss this episode. So stay tuned. Hi, Jamiah. How are you this morning?
Wonderful. Thank you, Justine. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure getting to know you while we're organizing this podcast. And I'm really excited to have you be introduced to our community and the friends that follow here, because I think what you're doing is really interesting. And I think that, you know, hearing about this as you're building this movement and creating this movement is just so exciting to be able to share and give people an opportunity both to join as well as be inspired to create their own initiatives. I know you inspired me. I'm already doing Palm Hill Farm Walk. I'm just in the midst of putting it together. So, Jamiah, if you would, for those folks that maybe are not familiar with you, if you could just give us a high level of what Crop Swap LA is.
Sure. Thanks again. So, Crop Swap LA is a nonprofit that grows food on unused spaces. It could be front yard, backyard, it could be an apartment building, maybe a school or a church, where we work together to find funding and decide where the food is going to go. And then our team creates a regular circulation of that food, usually through a CSA distribution or usually through a CSA distribution. But we also collect fruit from fruit trees, do workshops, train leaders in other areas, and do installations at people's homes that they can manage if they want to. So we are all about growing food, being food independent, and creating opportunities for people.
So I hear you saying this, and you're building this kind of platform or framework for people to be able to, make themselves more independent and have greater access to the food, if I'm hearing you right. Is that
That's
correct?
right. Yep.
So if I was, or if you were talking to any one of our guests that might say, so how can I implement this? Or what can I do in my neighborhood? What would you say to them?
Well, the first thing is to know that even just having the question means that you are the leader. You are the one your neighborhood has been waiting on. You have the courage to ask, you have the courage to look for the opportunity, and now you're in charge. That said, keep it to yourself first. The best plan is to do the entire plan before anyone else knows. Basically, I have a process that I teach my mentees. I guess it's a cohort of people across the country now. It's an initiative called Crop Swap Your City. So it's obviously Crop Swap LA here, but if you're in Cincinnati or you're in Austin, you're in Colorado Springs, Denver, wherever, then you have the chance to be the leader there. Certainly, all I can do at this distance is to guide you and hope that you do well. So we have a monthly video call in order to kind of have a consultancy in a way for all of the cohort members and what they're facing at this moment. They may be right at the very beginning, just having a concept. They may be where you are, where you have an idea and a name and a community in mind. They may be further down the road and already have a nonprofit with some funding coming, or already have a business with some operations happening. And based on what I've learned here with my team over the last 7 years, I can guide at least a few steps to see, what's possible. It's different every time, but the opportunities are endless, and you've always got to start right where you are. So in my case, I started with just crop swapping with extra stuff from my garden. That turned into a farmer's market and fruit tree harvesting, which then turned into growing food on yards and selling that on a CSA. Down the road, it also turned into more projects being done and water retention during fires and things like that. So people are calling us to hook up sprayers to their house to keep it wet during a fire. So you never know where it's going to lead, but it certainly is the beginning, and I'm here to help guide people through it.
It's so inspiring, and I think that it really spearheads and empowers people to create change, both for themselves and their community, which I think is great. Um, and I'd love to know what inspired you to go down this path.
I was mostly inspired by having my first daughter. I'm grateful I have two and a beautiful wife, but the first daughter triggers something in every person. And I want to say it triggers something different in a man. Certainly, I was thinking about protecting her. And I
Mhm.
just looked around Los Angeles to understand what the food availability was, what's the kind of food, the price, what's in it, how much I understood the food, and I just didn't trust it. So I decided to go ahead and grow my own garden. I had very little knowledge, very little experience, and like I said earlier, I grew too much, and so that turned into, almost an awareness, an enlightenment moment, where I said, "Wow, if I can accidentally grow too much food, then I suddenly have the ability to have something valuable. I may not have gold, or I may not have property at the time, I may not even have a reputation at the time, but I can create something that's useful to someone else." Um, so that, triggered all my entrepreneurial energies that I'd always had. And I thought, well, if there's that much abundance possible in nature, and all I have to do is keep trying at it, then eventually I'll figure this out. So, I encourage people to look closely at your own life. Do you have a partner, lover, lifestyle, a person you care for, an elderly person, or a community that you love? That is, the core of the motivation that will get you to get over the risks that are necessary for you to be a leader, and to really engage in a meaningful way, in the way that's relevant to that community. That way that sticks. Because we found ways here in LA, using water, rainwater capture, water retention, and water recycling to really engage the economics of our operations and make it financially reasonable to people. When their water is being recycled, it costs a lot less to grow their own food. And of course, in a city like this, it's a very important thing. So just think about your local context, and you'll be more advantageous in overcoming risks.
No, I think that that sort of really lays it out for people. And as you're sitting there and you're explaining it and you're talking about your city, and LA, as well as all of the state of California, has been known for droughts. So being able to recycle that water seems really, it sparks my interest. I'm like, okay, so now tell me, how do I do that? How do people do that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you don't have experience in landscaping, I think finding a local mentor in landscaping is essential. But, showing them our videos and what we've done here, essentially, finding someone that's keen in irrigation and a little bit of like waterfalls, rainwater capture. It may be rare, and you may be the only one in your town, but uh, it's very easy to understand once you get into it. There are videos on YouTube on various like landscaping platforms that just show you the process of how it's done. Try not to get caught up in the weeds and the intricacies, but knowing that you probably don't need a license for this kind of thing, especially if you're using your own property. But there are people who are licensed on certain categories of the work, like the electrical and the landscaping piece, the plumbing. Each of those are specialties. So if you just try it once or twice, you'll kind of get the hang of it. I'm big on mentorship. It's okay to pay your mentors, if you have money at the time. Work together as partners in that way, because they're proud of this work too. And no matter where you live, you could be up in the Midwest or the Northeast, you could be in Canada. Rainwater capture is always going to be useful. In fact, rainwater capture is something that has been, I think, taken out of our culture, uh, where we used to have natural refrigerators out of pots that have a sand and two layers of pots to just keep it cool, keep it wet, and it stays cool. We used to have streams that can come through our kitchens, and that's the water we use to clean dishes, wash, drink, and so forth.
With global warming and the changes that we're seeing around the globe in terms of weather, etc. Last year there was a drought in New York and they were told they couldn't, water their lawns, which is really unusual. I mean, that New York is not California, but I do suspect, and I'm wondering what you think, that as we continue on this journey and, we see the effects of global warming, this process could be very useful for so many other people outside of California to maybe avoid some of that.
Yeah,
And so my
no,
question to you
yeah.
is, if we thought about this, um, depending on how many people, and even looking at what you have now, based on the number of people that you have participating in this, and doing rain capture and recycling the water, what kind of impact can you see on a local level that we can then sort of imagine what it would be like on a global level?
Massive, massive impact, even locally. In Los Angeles, there are 20,000 people living in every 1 square mile, and each person needs 5 gallons of water each day in order to live, to drink, to wash, to clean. And right now, we're getting our water in Southern California from the Colorado River Basin, way over in Colorado, and from the Shasta Mountains, I think on way up north in California. But it's certainly not coming locally. We have no like groundwater to tap into like many places would. So we're just waiting on catastrophe. We're waiting on one of those pipes to break and for it to not be fixed for 6 months. I think that would change the whole city. Most people would have to leave the city and create a migration event to all the other surrounding areas. And those who remained here would just be in trouble, frankly. So, really, this has a way to save LA by having multiple rainwater reservoirs around Los Angeles. That's one of my goals, to have multiple, up to 100 of them, and for that water to be promised on a financial model to other people in the case of an emergency. So
Mm-hmm.
my neighbors right now, I've got 5 around me. Each one of them could have 500 gallons of our water at my house if they're paying me to maintain it. And that's something I'm arranging on our legal side. And that's part of the piece of to the leaders listening, that you don't want to like announce anything until you've got all the legal figured out, you know what the financial model is and who's going to run it in your team. But we're putting some arrangements together that they could sign and then pay us a monthly fee, say $50 a month in perpetuity, in order to have this water available in the case of emergency. So once this earthquake hits and our pipes break, then they know they've got 500 gallons here to like use until they choose to hit the road. So
Wow.
we've got to think that way. Survivalist is reality. But then once we do it well here in LA, it's going to be even more important to other areas outside LA that are used to having water.
Mm-hmm.
Places like, say, Wisconsin, that is naturally, the rest of us are going through weird climate changes. If they hit a drought one day, then they'll suddenly say, "Oh my goodness, we need to have rainwater capture up here. Does anyone know how to do it?" Well, no, we've never had to think about it. It's not a desert. So, we'll suddenly be more important to like lead them and guide them in the right directions than even people down here.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to what I was saying in New York, how they then had a
Mhm.
drought last year, right? And we're going to
Yeah,
continue to see this problem around the world, around the country, as global warming continues.
yeah.
Um, so I just find that like so inspiring. And as you're sitting there and you're talking about it, you're like, well, I can house it for you for $50. What does that look like? How are you housing it for us? And
Yeah,
how
we
much
have.
can you house? Like, what's the most you can house?
Yeah, at my house, we have 5,000 gallons of potable drinking water that stays fresh due to our aeration and biofiltration and other filters. But that was going small. That was a modest space. It's like a 20 by 20 platform that you can use the top of, but it's stored underground. If we would have gone massive, I could store maybe, instead of 5,000 gallons, maybe 40,000 gallons. And that might even be modest. So each property can have that and then still have an entertainment space on it, a waterfall next to it that the water's going down through, and efficient electricity using solar panels and timers on low cost energy timing. Um, so 40,000 gallons, that would probably be enough for maybe 15 families to last, 3/4 of a year. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and that was all costing just one house the expense of the installation and then the expense of the electricity. Um, so, really, I haven't done all the math yet, but I do know that it's a real cost that if cities, say city leadership leans in and says, okay, if the cost is $50,000 for that installation, let's choose 100 families, just give them each $50,000 from our tax base or from the police budget, which is always infinite and growing. Let's give them each $50,000 and have Crop Swap LA put it in their properties. That'll ensure that this area of 100 families or like 20 square miles is taken care of and not going to flee in the case of emergency. Because if people flee during the case of an emergency, suddenly your tax base is gone and
Right.
the city is going to go bankrupt. So
Right.
it's almost a huge liability for cities not to lean into this. So we're really, we're talking to the mayor's office in LA. I've spoken to a number of mayor's offices around LA. There's like 87 cities in LA County. And I've spread this message. So eventually, I think people are going to catch wind to this.
Yeah, I think so. And as I'm thinking about this intellectually as you're saying it, and I'm imagining all these different homes that you've got relationships that are implementing this. And I'm wondering, I live in a town and I'm wondering, well, perhaps there's land here for the town to do it, for the town to find the space, the land, to input this, to pay for it, and then include it in our taxes. I mean, we pay taxes, include it in there. We get, they charge more every year we're getting us new assessments and all sorts of new things. um, and then you know you have the town managing it, doing it, and it's not on somebody else's property. Not that it's a bad idea to put on somebody else's property. I'm just thinking of more urban settings where people may not have that amount of space always to carve into their garden or something. um, and if we could find a space, is that something you've considered or you thought about or you explored?
Yeah, I'm open to that. Most towns have some type of capture, some type of reservoir, but the use is different each time. It might be uh, recycled water. It might be just rainwater if it rains there often. Sometimes it goes out to the sea. It just depends. But I do think it's wise. I think now then the question becomes who has access to it in the case of an emergency. I think individuals would have a hard time competing against corporations who would claim the need to use it
Hmm.
on a corporate level.
Very
So
good point.
really,
I
yeah,
didn't
this
even
is
think about it like that. Like the
yeah,
way that you're framing it and that your viewpoint is, it wasn't even, I didn't consider that, which I could imagine could be a really big challenge.
yeah, yeah. If I can't probably can't name an exact corporation, but if corporation X comes up and says, we need 10,000 gallons every day in order to
Right,
keep this thing running, and we pay this much tax money, then the mayor will feel pressure to allow them to do that. So,
right.
our model on a residential method allows for a decentralization of power
Hmm.
and an independent approach where nobody can corrupt or intervene on the agreement that we have with, say, our neighbors.
Right.
It would stand up in court, and it would be the decisions of the landowners whose the water is their property. They're deciding who they want to give it to based on
It's
what
like
price.
having your own well
Yep.
almost, right? It's like, I mean, when I grew up, my mom had a house in Woodstock and she had a well. We had well water,
Lovely.
right? So I think, we're sort of going back to that a little bit, except that we're intentionally creating a solution where it could be more community driven to support
Yes,
that initiative as we experience global warming and the change and the droughts.
that's right.
Is this your first time being an entrepreneur?
I wouldn't say it's my first time. I've tried a few times before. I had a cute little dating app when I lived in New York City that would help young people have a wing woman if they went out to meet people.
That's cute.
And then I had a concept of a co-working space for parents that would have a nursery on site. um, and I've always been an entrepreneur as a child. I had a little lawn mowing business. I was a paper boy. That's entrepreneurial. And
Mhm.
I just loved writing business plans when I was in college. I had a little translation business, little things like that. And I have an invention that I have yet to bring to market. related to water and growing food, not growing food, but growing plants off of your toilet.
Wow,
um,
that
yeah,
sounds interesting. Tell me more about that.
yeah, it's called toiletries, and it's a product that,
That's funny.
yeah, yeah, it hooks on the side of a clean tank and uses that clean water to grow an aerivescent or like a nice smelling and nice looking plant. I just haven't had time to follow through with it.
Toiletries.
Yeah,
That's
toiletries, but I
very
do have it
clever.
translated. I mean, I have all the intellectual property ready. I just haven't had time. But those kinds of things, those inventions and ideas come to mind. But what really ends up mattering is beyond the idea stage of the implementation, the
Mhm.
operations, and that's where Crop Swap LA has been so amazing. The team that we've built that does our farming, that does our projects, a team on our HR, finance, and fundraising sides, our board of directors, like that piece of it is really where the grit comes into play
Mhm.
because there are operational challenges, there are limitations, there's personalities, there's a different environment every few weeks of, that you got to operate in. And there's like big scale things like politics and subsidies and grant decisions and all of that I have to operate within. Like really, entrepreneurship is a test of tenacity,
Mhm.
and you can show that even if you have a simple business. Say you just bought laundromats and you just bought 5 laundromats, it's not even that simple. You can't sit back and just earn that money. Like every day some of those machines are going to be breaking, your staff are going to be stealing coins, like people's going to like damage something or some crisis, and you've just got to figure out the systems to put in place so that your mindset can be at rest. Because right now, as much we've had a lot of success at Crop Swap LA, but I do still wake up every morning at like 3:30. I just snap awake and my brain is working on about 6 or 7 things at once in bed. I just have to get up and write them down or start working. And one day things will be settled enough that I'll be such a good entrepreneur that there are systems in place for others to think about those things, to anticipate problems. But right now, I'm still really essential. I'm still really essential to the mission. Our teammates are each so essential to this mission as well. Each one of them, I need them each doing amazing things and being confident. So I'm grateful for who we have, who we've had involved over the last 7 years, the different phases. But really, it's just the willingness to take on risk and the willingness, the trust, and almost the faith to keep going despite seeing continual challenges and despite knowing whether or not it's enough. Like I told my wife this morning, I'm just not sure if Crop Swap LA is enough to solve the problems that our society is facing. But then you have to narrow into your own mission and
Right.
say to yourself, like, my job isn't to fix politics at all. I'm not there. My job is not to fix our wars or conflicts or like issues. My job is to work on this problem, and this is where my purpose and passion would most likely most be useful.
What would you say to somebody that might be tuning in today that says, that sounds amazing. I want to do that, but I'm not an entrepreneur. Do I need to be an entrepreneur to do that? To be Crop Swap LA or Crop Swap Cincinnati?
I say yes, you do need to be an entrepreneur, but because you're working with nature, which gives you infinite seeds from a plant and gives you infinite opportunities to try again, because you're doing that, you have a lot less risk than an entrepreneur in a field that doesn't do that. So like if you were just trying to like start a steel plant or something where there's a certain amount of input and a certain amount of output and it has to be the right ratio and you can't make a big mistake, then that's tricky. This, when you plant one seed and it works, and then it goes to seed, suddenly you have 1,000 seeds of that same plant, and you have 1,000 opportunities to do something else. And you can keep going with the next season and the next season, and the next season. Plus, people always need to eat. So you'll always find an opportunity to try again if you failed. And there's
Mhm.
really no failing at this. You just have to find the right scale to match the economics. And that's, something that takes time. But because it's an in-demand field and because the food system is worsening, it's going to be more successful even without your effort. People are naturally going to want to see you succeed. So there's goodwill involved, and you've got good leadership and examples, between those before me, and then now you're hearing this today. So I'd say, by all means, trust that you can do the math. and that you can have the tenacity, and that nature will give you way more opportunities than you even need.
Yeah, and the other thing I also remembered that I just want to add is I believe you've also fostered a community for support and mentorship that's integral to this. And as a result, those new founders or people that want to do this in their community have access to that. What does that look like?
Yeah, right now there's about 10 people involved in our Crop Swap Your City initiative. They signed up initially to join. It's about $300 one-time fee. You can come as often as you want forever. And when you sign online, it's a 1 hour meeting each month. So it's not much time, but we get right to it. We're at, excuse me, but we get right to it where I ask people where they are in their process. They present their problems and challenges, and I immediately give them the feedback. So all of them are learning from each other, and we're all learning about their situations. Like one woman out of Dallas, she has a daycare in her home. So I proposed to her that she ask each parent, right now there are 20 parents, 20 children attending there, ask them each for an extra $100. And that'll pay for a $2,000 installation of a garden in her backyard, and promise them that they'll be the first group to have regular bags each, I don't know, month or so. And you could create lettuces out of that and just make sure that you increase the retention of that family in being a nursery member. They'll be happy to continue coming, knowing that they'll also get vegetables out of it. So, that's just one creative way to leverage existing opportunities. And, we talk through those. And then other people, they may just see fruit trees in their neighborhood. So I'll guide them on what it takes to create a fruit tree harvesting program and a regular paid distribution system to others, or start a farmers market or a corner market, or pay or get paid by market to, sorry, or sell to local markets that fruit. It's
Right.
oftentimes exotic fruit that tastes way better than the store, may cost a lot less, and they'll be happy to see it. So the opportunities are there that we talk through. And for me, that really helps me to replicate myself. I mentioned earlier, and this can replicate our mission across fields. So what we're doing is we're copywriting, we're writing manuals that are going to be part of a curriculum I'll be teaching later on, that will guide people on some of the critical steps of, say, fruit tree harvesting, or say, gardening on front yards, or creating water recycling systems. All of that, each one could be a book on its own, honestly. But we have to take the time to do it right, to make sure that the information is complete and disseminated properly. And then at that point, we think, people who don't even attend our meetings would be able to pick it up and give it a try.
So, what role, if any, does organic or regenerative play in your plan as you're educating and conveying what these people can do and how they can integrate this into their community?
Yes, it's essential. I think when we look at our grocery stores, almost none of them are regenerative. Even some of the good ones, like Trader Joe's, they've admitted to me that they've seen less and less organic fruit on their shelves. Even though they're a good place, they just
Mhm.
have trouble putting it on the shelves. And so all of our methodology at Crop Swap LA is organic and has regenerative features to it, from the style and choice of our fertilizers, style and choice of our pesticides, because you do still need pesticides. It's just they can be organic pesticides or plant based. Um, all the seeds being non-GMO, all of the delivery methods being hyper local and efficient and light on the environment, all the materials chosen being not plastic, and various other pieces that help augment the efficiency of the system, which is the real problem of big ag, is this: it's highly inefficient. It's designed to make money, and there are multiple people involved, maybe 20 or 30 before you get your food. And so, here we're saying there should be maybe 2 or 3 people involved before you get your food. Or if you want to get involved, maybe 2 people. So we show that, and we've been doing this now 7 years in different forms. And it's just really, showing people there's an alternative method, that there's hope, that there's a better way, that we don't have to be enslaved by a food system that hurts us and the environment and costs too much, but instead we can kind of just opt out of it, right? Like, I'm not trying to close down the grocery system. I think there are moments when it's useful, but I think we can opt out of needing something and a dependency on anything like that, and regain our independence and our own personal power and our personal rights to grow food and have healthy options.
So as you've built this over the last 7 years, how many, can you give me a percentage of how many people in the LA community you've converted that are now doing this versus um, going to the grocery store?
Yeah, right now we estimate there are about 1,000 people involved in our circulation of those receiving food, growing food, contributing fruits, receiving fruits, contributing to our workshops or coming on school tours. We, excuse me, we probably affect about 1,000 people every month. And right now we're growing food on 10 different locations between schools, churches, apartment buildings, and residential spots. And our teammates are, 16 people doing that. So we're all really dedicated and hardworking. It's hard for any of us to take vacations, but that's because food keeps growing and the need continues to be there. In terms of location, we're probably around 20,000 people that know about us in Los Angeles. We've been all over the news, but in fact, some people just see me and walk up to my truck. And somebody mistook my brother for me the other day. I thought that was really funny.
Funny.
Uh, but we never know how many people we impact. But we do know that once they are impacted, it is an irreversible impact. Once you
Oh,
drive by my home here that has all this food growing outside, kids look at it and they point to dad and mom on the commute to school and they say, "Mommy, Daddy, we should have a garden too." And then all of a sudden, it's in their heads and there's no going back.
wow, that's amazing. I mean, I can imagine it. Passing by, being inspired, wanting to have that in your own. We have a little edible garden in our yard, in our garden. And we have kale and we have lemons and we've got limes and we have basil and we have an herb garden on the first tier of the garden, and then on the second tier we have vegetables and we've got fruits all around. Um, but it's new and it takes time to build. And as you're building Crop Swap LA or Crop Swap your city, how many more people do you hope to touch in the next 3 to 5 years, and how many more people do you hope to convert
Right.
to this way of doing things?
Yeah, it really is a lifestyle. We're estimating we'll be able to build 10 more micro farms or nano farms each year. And a micro farm is one that captures and recycles water. A nano farm is a simpler version that we also over farm and take redistribute most of the food. So we think about 10 a year. So if that's 5 years out, we should have about 60 locations 5 years from now. And that right now we have 10 and we're distributing to 80 people every Sunday. So if you multiply that by five, then that's about 400 families should get food from us each week.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I wonder how and what impact that will have on the way that grocery stores are set up.
Yeah, I think right now we haven't had any pressure, negative from grocery stores. We've had some interest in the smaller ones to partner with us. I hesitate though because I don't truly think the business model of the grocery store is efficient. I think based on the science of the plant, when you harvest it, it's got phytonutrients in it for about 24 hours, and phytonutrients are only active based on the sun in that 24-hour period, and that makes the other nutrients easier to digest in your body, easier to ingest. But without those phytonutrients, it's harder for those other nutrients to go in your body. It's almost like you're not eating anything at all. So when you think about the health and the benefit the buyer gets, they're better benefited from our food that's dropped on their door the morning it was harvested than they would be from the lettuce in the grocery stores 3 weeks earlier when it was harvested. Uh,
Right. Or
so
even
yeah,
the fruits and vegetables that come from Mexico or somewhere else.
yeah,
I mean, now we're talking about, carbon footprint, and we're talking about eating local and supporting the local environment, and just building that community around, what we should be eating
yeah.
in that moment. Um,
That's true. Hmm.
So, wow, so many reasons to want to get on board to do this. So many reasons to, I think it's self-fulfilling. I think it's better for us and it's better for the planet too, and it's healthier too.
Yes, indeed.
And I think that there's a lot of positive impact that you're having on a local level, but also a global level by inspiring others and replicating this, this platform. And I think it's really great. I mean, it made me think about it in a new way. And it made me think about collaboration and community and bringing people together, which you don't go to the store together generally. Like, that's not a thing. Like, oh, hey guys, you want to meet and go to the grocery store? You do meet and go to the farmer's market,
Yeah, yeah, but even
right?
that's
So not
somewhat,
it's building community too.
yeah, lots of community, lots of stories shared between people about, oh, my grandma had this type of Lyme when I was a child. Oh, lots of memories, lots of recollections when someone tastes something that they remembered from their childhood, and lots of learning and enlightenment when children see something happening and they say, oh, that's how tomatoes made. It's just so much more enriching doing it this way, um, that we wouldn't want anything else, for our community. We have a big garden walk coming up here in our Leimert Park area of Los Angeles, and I'm excited to introduce this to more people, because our gardens are edible and other gardens may not be. They may be just like, um, succulents and things for, pollinators, but ours is for the human pollinators, and we need to eat. So I'm just thrilled about the community that's forming around us and the example that we can be for the rest of the world.
I think that's amazing. And I know that you have some exciting things coming up.
Yes.
And I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, April is Earth Month, and so Crop Swap LA is launching its next fundraising campaign around a few key events. We have a big TV spot happening on NBC. I was invited onto the Kelly Clarkson show, so that'll be happening April 2nd on TV if people want to see that. We also have the Leimert Park Art Walk, the Leimert Park Garden Walk, which is happening on April 14th, and that's exciting. We also are launching a new school garden at a school for the deaf. I won't say their name right now, but I'm just excited that they'll have that kind of experience. And I just think about somebody who is deaf and all the other sensational experiences
Hmm.
of touching a plant, smelling a plant, tasting a plant. Like, there's so many great benefits that'll come from it. Right now, we have a disabled veteran on our team who works at my daughter's school garden that we put in, and she's making a lot of headway. So there's just so many levels of impact that could occur, that we're just happy to be sharing all through the month of April.
Awesome. Jemiah, thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your story with our community, my friends, everyone that tunes in each week to Essential Ingredients. It's really inspiration. It's a real inspiration to hear about this as an entrepreneur and what you're building and the impact you're having, and equally the opportunity for other people that are entrepreneurial to see the resources that they have available to them to be able to do this themselves as well, while creating while creating such an amazing impact for our health, our wellness, and the planet. It's a real give back. And as my mom used to say, it's like a triple win, you know?
Yes,
So I support you, and I can't wait to, you know, explore the idea of the Palm Hill Farm Walk.
I love that, Justine. I hope it goes so
Yeah,
well. You let me know if you ever need advice, but I'm so
I
grateful to
will.
be on
I
your
will.
show today.
You totally inspired me. And we just want to do it on a couple blocks on our hill, right? That's
Yeah.
it. And people just put out their leftovers and they can go certain times. We'll see. I'll keep you posted and I'll pick your brain for insight.
Okay,
Um,
wonderful. I think it'd be so cute.
okay, well, I appreciate that. I'll send you a photo of our edible garden as well.
Yes, please. Thank
And
you.
then, and our guests that are tuning in today, if you guys have any questions or want to learn more about this Jemiah, tell them how can they best get in touch with you.
The best way is our website. It's cropswapla.org. Or if you're on Instagram, I'm Brown Superdad on Instagram, Brown Superdad. Or if you're using TikTok, I'm Captain Plant It. Captain Plant It. It's a coloring book, and I actually haven't announced it yet. It's behind me on the wall here, but I'll be announcing that through April as well. People can buy that coloring book that rhymes and it's about a superhero carrot to teach his neighborhood how to grow food.
Awesome. And I'm at the edge of my seat waiting for toiletries.
Yeah, it's
Hey,
on the way.
hashtag toiletries. I love that.
Yeah.
Joanne, thanks again for tuning in and sharing, what you're working on and the impact you're having with our community.
Thank you, Justine. And thank you, everyone.